Alright guys, welcome to RC Mojo. This week we've got something new to play with. I was a little worried when the package arrived with this inside. The box is totally demolished. If you look at the feedback for these little trucks, it's not uncommon though, and the bag was sealed, so it could have been worse. Inside the box was a WPL C44KM, another one of these 1/16 scale trucks that kind of crosses the line between toy grade and hobby grade RC. This variant has a tray-back Toyota FJ40 body and some fairly major upgrades compared to the old C14 and B1 that we built a little while ago. We'll start with the somewhat traditional laying out of the parts to see what we actually get. First up is the frame for the tray-back in black plastic. Next is the white roof and the headlights around, which as far as I can tell is a very scale shape. A lot of the FJ40 toys change it just a little bit to avoid license issues. Here's the main bit of the cab, and unfortunately it's been squashed during shipping. I thought a lot about trying to get it replaced, but it should be an easy fix, and I don't really want to wait another 2 or 3 weeks for a new one to turn up. These parts trees include the scale bits like the wipers, bumpers and a gear knob. Lots of bits, always some very nice detail. This is the rest of the body parts, so the doors, the window frames and a bunch of other bits. Here we have the base moulding for the cab floor and the dashboard. The tyres are extremely soft. As long as they're nice and round, they should work a treat. This is where things get a little bit more interesting. Here we have a full set of wheel weights. They're very heavy and should keep the tyres planted when driving off-road. In here we have the rod ends for the suspension, all the fixings and balls, and from their appearance they look to be good enough quality. These are the clear mouldings. Now it's nice to have the window rubbers pre-painted. I don't mind doing it, but it's a lot easier if you don't have to. Another good bit, the axles are cast metal rather than plastic, and the kit comes with a full set of bearings rather than the plastic bushings of the old models. This bag contains a proper metal gear servo for the steering, along with some dubiously wide LEDs and a packet of grease. Now these are fun. You get a full set of planks for the tray back made of actual wood. This one has a 2-speed gearbox and a micro servo. It's also nice to see they're using a much bigger motor than the old kits. There's a vague chance it's actually going to have some torque to it. The chassis rails, they're metal, but just die cut from sheet, but they'll do though. We get some nice decals, one sheet with the scale bits and one to show your support for WPL. Now, I might have to stick those on the TRX4 and see if anybody notices. There's 2 manuals in the kit, one Chinese and one English. The translations look pretty good, but most of the information is in the diagrams, so I'm sure we can work it out as we go. So that's what you get in the box, all for around 55 quid shipped to your door. If it runs well, I think that's hard to beat for a 1/16 scale truck. In addition to what's in the box, we'll also need an ESC. Now I'm just going to use another one of these little tiny ones that we've used on the other WPL builds, as well as several Rastar conversions. They're not brilliant, but they do the job. For the radio, I'm going to go a bit overkill with a GT3C with modified firmware. I want at least 4 channels, so steering, throttle, gearbox and lights. So it seemed like the easiest thing to do. Plus I can always use it with other trucks. To go with the transmitter, I've also got a 6-channel receiver, as the GT3C only comes with a 3-channel. You'll also need a battery. Some sort of 2S LiPo should work, but I don't know what size. We'll need to build up the truck and see what space is left to cram it in. Right, I think since that's a rather short look at the bits, we'll have a look at what we need to do to fix the cab. It looks like something sat on the bag during shipping, so one side is still straight, but the other side has quite a bad stress mark and a bend on the sill. There's also a bit of a crack on the back. To get everything lined up, we'll use the floor inserted as a jig. It's got slots that lock into the bottom of the sills, so when it fits we can be fairly sure it's going to be straight enough. Right now though, it's not even close to fitting, so we need to do a bit of freehand straightening first. Bending when cold is a bit of a risk. There's a good chance it might crack and snap. It's better to warm it up with a heat gun, being very careful not to fully melt the plastic. Now there's a few ways it can go depending on the exact material. Some will go almost immediately limp, some will start to bubble up, and some don't seem to be bothered by the heat at all. In this case though, we're lucky. As we warm it up, the plastic starts to relax back into its original shape. After a few seconds, it's almost back to how it should be. While it's still warm, we can give it a little extra help, so it should be getting fairly close to where it needs to be. On the rear panel, right where there's a line in the moulding, the plastic has folded over. There's also a slight bend right next to it. If we fit the floor, it locates on 2 posts and a tab, so it should help with aligning everything. With it in place, we can heat the rear panel and see how it goes. Again, we need to be fairly gentle so we don't end up making things worse. And there we go. Other than a little bit of plastic that's now bending upwards, I think it's going to be good enough. On the back we have the rear panel. Now it's supposed to clip in place plus a couple of screws. If we press it in, we can see the damaged side isn't quite a perfect fit. But when the panel's fully home, it doesn't look too bad at all. On the other side, the door is another matter. It doesn't quite fit in the aperture. It looks like while heating the sill, it's actually shrunk by a fairly significant amount. To fix it, all we should need to do is warm up the plastic again, then while it's still soft, pull fairly hard for a few seconds just to stretch it a little. It's not an exact science, so it could take a few goes. After a bit of fiddling, the door now fits with a little extra space. Now we'll pop the bits off the cab again, so we're ready to start the build proper. So far, other than the shipping damage, I'm quite impressed by what I see. As long as it's mechanically sound, I think it's pretty much unbeatable value-wise. So that's it for this week then. Don't forget we've got a Discord server now if you want to chat RC with some like-minded people. It's free and there's a link in the description. As always then, thanks for watching, like if you liked, subscribe if you haven't, and leave a comment if there's something on your mind. Bye guys!